Hello, and welcome to Mission Business, a podcast about good business for those in the business of good, presented by Your Part-Time Controller, LLC, also known as YPTC. My name is Jennifer Alleva, the host of Mission Business and managing partner at YPTC. On Mission Business, we're giving nonprofits from around the globe a platform to discuss their inventive programs and business models. On this episode of Mission Business, I spoke to Kathryn Lott, Executive Director of Southern Smoke, a Houston-based nonprofit started by James Beard Award-winning chef Chris Shepard in 2015. Southern Smoke has been pivoting way before we all started overusing the word pivot. First raising money for multiple sclerosis, then as a crisis relief organization after Hurricane Harvey devastated Texas, and now providing millions of dollars to out-of-work hospitality workers around the country due to COVID closures. We talked to Kathryn about her journey with Southern Smoke, the challenges of scaling up quickly to meet a need, and how her nonprofit arts background informs her work at Southern Smoke. And now, my conversation with Kathryn Lott. Welcome to Mission Business Podcast, Kathryn. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jennifer, for having me.
Tell us the story of how Southern Smoke got started.
So Southern Smoke originally really was, the truth of it is that it was a really, really great party with James Beard Award-winning chefs that were all smoking meat and the back parking lots behind Chris's restaurants in order to bring awareness and fundraising to MS on behalf of Chris's former sommelier, Antonio Gianola. And he had just been diagnosed, and we had just lost a prominent chef in Houston due to suicide when he had been diagnosed. And so we really wanted to erase the shame from that disease and support the education and research. And so we ended up being the third largest fundraiser for the MS Society within our region. And though when Hurricane Harvey hit, we had to transform our mission to be even more industry-based, and our tagline is taking care of our own. And so we made that shift at that point.
So Hurricane Harvey hits in 2017.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Well, to my surprise, Chris literally waded in the waters, the flood waters, from his house to his restaurants to get the doors open, because obviously in this industry, these folks live shift to shift. It's not even paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. So he needed to open the doors. He needed to feed the first responders. He needed to feed the hungry community that was suffering at the time. And he needed to make sure that people were getting paid. And so he flew open his doors literally the second day of the storm and was one of the very first and only restaurants open. And I think that's one of the things that we don't see a lot, is that we forget that these restaurants and these workers, right behind those first responders are always those that are feeding the hungry, and that always comes from the food and beverage industry. And so at that time, right after he flung open his doors, he gave me the glorious phone call and said, I have to find a way, Kathryn, through Southern Smoke, to put money directly into the hands of people in our industry who are suffering right now. And I said, well, Chris, I think that if there was a way to do that our Red Crosses and our United Ways and all of those folks would be doing that. And he said, well, we're going to change the landscape then, and we got to figure it out. And what do you say to some guy that literally just waded in floodwaters to his restaurant in the middle of a storm? So I said, okay. And that changed the trajectory of everything. And that from that year, we were able to disperse $501,000 to 139 families in Houston. And from that, the Emergency Relief Fund was born. And that's when we knew that that was now going to be our mission, that we were going to help food and beverage workers and their suppliers who were in crisis. So any sort of crisis, we want to be there and we wanted to help. And soon after, we looked at our friends in Napa and Sonoma who were on fire. And so we wanted to turn our heads towards that. And that's how we became a national organization and started funding nationwide.
Tell us a little bit about how it all works. I mean, who do you support in the food and food and beverage industry? Is it everybody? Is it, how far does it go?
We support anyone in what we call the food chain. So one of Chris's things is that he recognizes that without the farmers and without the ranchers and without all of the other suppliers, he wouldn't be where he is now. And so again, that value system is absorbed within his foundation. And so we take on anyone that picks the produce or stomps the grapes or processes the food and beverage from its place of origin all the way until it gets to the restaurant, either front of house or back of house, serving those consumers inside the restaurants and bars. So it's a large group of people, especially when you're talking about on a national scale.
Bravo. I mean, that is terrific.
Thank you.
So what kind of expenses do your grants cover?
So we cover any type of crisis, whether it's mental health needs, medical needs, rent and mortgage, loss of wages. Right now, we're really hoping that we can make a dent in our farming community for Uri's winter storm. We treat each and every human being as an individual. And so as their applications come in, we're not a first come, first serve organization because we were a crisis relief organization prior to the pandemic. Right. And a lot of people find that absurd that we wouldn't change our operating methods. But again, we really have found success in it. So the way that it works is if somebody applies online, immediately a screener will receive that application and they will code it. So if you're in a life and death situation, that's a code red. So what we mean by that is if you're sleeping in your car with your children and you're in Chicago during a blizzard, that's life and death. And so I don't want to give the illusion that somebody has to be bleeding out on the street in order to have a life and death situation, which we call code red. But what that means for us is we drop everything and we wire over money right then and there. We never lose part of the process. We have to call our committee. We have to call everybody in case management and verify employment and have all of those things. And as soon as we have that, boom, that person has that money. So that's how we respond to urgency. We have literally given up to $100,000 within 12 hours because that's how well oiled we are. And that was prior to the pandemic. And then there's code orange, which is anyone of a vulnerable population that is either experiencing homelessness or on the brink of homelessness. And then code yellow, general population on the brink of homelessness or experiencing homelessness. And then you get into utilities and cars and loss of wages and all of that. And that's when you really have to encapsulate somebody into the whole person picture because, for instance, if I don't have heat here in Houston, Texas, during February, I mean, I'm probably just leaving my doors open anyway because the weather's, that's my only month for really nice weather. But if I am in Detroit, if I am somewhere where that is a deadly something, then we have to respond accordingly. So then the next thing that I'm really proud of, I said one of two things I'm really proud of. And the second thing is that we don't put a cap on our gifts. So a lot of folks operate super efficiently, and we're so happy that they're on the ground because sometimes they can respond faster to the non-life and death cases, and they'll just distribute $200 to the first 500 people that apply or whatever the case may be. But we don't put a cap on the gifts, and so we are able to, as I said, we've been able to give gifts up to $100,000. Last month we gave $43,000 to a gentleman who had a brain deteriorating disease, who couldn't get a hospital bed during COVID. And by the time that somebody found him, it was irreversible, but he is now going to have a quality of life rather than spending his last days in hospice. He will now be able to actually have hope of having a real quality life on his own. And so it's tremendous what that amount of money will bring to folks that are in need.
I mean, you guys are doing such incredibly important work for a vulnerable population, especially during the pandemic, where, I don't know, it was like 7 million people lost their jobs in the food and beverage industry. Maybe I have that number right or wrong. I'm not sure, but
it's estimated at 8 right now.
8 million. Okay. 8 million people. And you are making the difference that you can make across the nation. And that is amazing. How do you do it so nimbly, where you say, we approved $100,000 in 12 hours. And, we work with a lot of foundations that would like to know your secrets of how does it happen so quickly?
Again, that's absorbing Chris's value system. We keep it very simple. We minimize red tape very intentionally. We have the most stellar machine, at least in my personal opinion. I totally know that I'm biased, and I'm sorry to say that. But so once you've been coded, then you're assigned a case manager. The case manager works with you to get all of your documentation. Once you have all of your documentation in place, we verify your employment, we verify your documentation, then we redact all of the applications, any sort of identifying character traits that would allow any of us to know who you are. And then it is sent up to the director of case management, then it's sent up to myself, then I make my recommendations to an awards committee who anonymously vote then based on all of the documents and all of the case that has been presented to them. And then it is turned around very, very quickly to the tune that we send out votes every single weekday, and we send out ACHs for our grant recipients every single weekday. And we did that throughout the entire pandemic. We were down for 2 days during the freeze. And that is the only, we actually still sent out ACHs during that time, but we didn't send votes during that time because we couldn't get Wi-Fi. But it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild.
That is a well-oiled machine.
Thanks.
Your part-time controller, the nonprofit accounting specialist, helps nonprofits everywhere navigate the new landscape by supporting them with their US-based remote services accounting staff. With over 700 nonprofit clients from coast to coast, YPTC assists with all your financial management needs. From bookkeeping and monthly financial statements to forecasting, budgeting, and customized dashboards. We help executive directors and board members sleep at night. More at yptc.com.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you one more question about mission, and that is your mental health services in Houston. And I just think that is just amazing support service that you provide. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that was hard. That was a tough one. So it actually came about the year that Anthony Bourdain passed, 2018. And we said, what is Southern Smoke's role here? What can we do? What would matter? And we finally walked away after a very healthy conversation and a very passionate one with a couple of items. And the strongest one that we felt was that we should start a hotline for folks in mental health crisis, specifically for the folks in the food and beverage industry. They wanted this hotline to work like someone was talking to them that knew them, that knew their life, that knew their routine, that they didn't have to. Chris always says, I love my mom so much and she might be comforting to me, but if I'm on the ledge, that's not who I want to talk to. I want to talk to my peers and my colleagues. And so we get on this path and I contact all of these partners and we're all about it. We were partnering with Mental Health America of Greater Houston. And we sort of put things on the back burner when the pandemic first hit. And then we were like, this isn't the back burner. This is the front burner.
Absolutely.
And so they were able to reach out to the University of Houston Psych Department, and their students needed the hours to get through their PhD program. And we, of course, had people that desperately needed mental health support. And they were able to not only help the people in this whole state of Texas who are in the food and beverage industry, but also their children. And it's been wildly successful. We did a recent survey, and man, people don't want to leave the program. They have had a huge experience. Some of them have gone off to find other therapists, but they have really valued this mental health experience. And I think that we've removed a stigma too, which is really cool. And so we are looking to have a couple of other models, test them out, see what works right here at home before we then expand it. But we do hope to do this nationwide and replicate that program.
That is amazing. And you're funded mainly by University of Houston supporting the program with their students.
It doesn't cost anything.
It's amazing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
They want us. They have the laptops. It's all screen to screen. And so it's, we're just doing the referral program, and, we pay our people, but that's part of our infrastructure.
They say ideas are a dime a dozen, but you guys come up with the ideas, but then execution is really where it counts. And it sounds like you are very good at that.
Thank you.
I think it really comes from the value of the founder and then the executive director, and then it just trickles down to everyone. If you're riding those values all the way through, then the work will show it. That's wonderful. I want to talk a little bit about the business of Southern Smoke, starting with public relations and fundraising. You guys seem to be wizards at that. For example, you have a partnership with Food and Wine magazine. How does that work, and how did that partnership come about?
Well, in addition to Chris Shepard, we have another co-founder. Her name is Lindsay Brown, and that is now Chris's wife. And she is the best thing that could ever happen to us, honestly. She is a guru in PR. And so she had those very reliable, trusted connections prior to this. Chris Shepard was also a Food and Wine Best New Chef. He has really good, deep ties with them. And when they saw what we were doing and they saw that we were surviving it, and actually increasing our support to the community, they knew that they wanted to throw their support behind it. And so
that's awesome.
Very cool. In fact, again, has not been announced yet, but Southern Smoke will now be one of the two beneficiaries of Aspen Food and Wine. And so that is probably the coolest thing to come out. So that partnership then parlayed into another partnership that parlayed into another partnership. And all of it's just really been overwhelming and incredible. Of course, I'm sure that you saw David Chang on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yes.
And but again, how all of that works, who knew that we were going to have the first celebrity to win $1 million on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We can't take credit for that. That's all David Chang. But then he goes on The View, and then he goes on all of the morning shows and Jimmy Kimmel, and all of a sudden people are talking about Southern Smoke and who's Southern Smoke. And then that parlays into other celebrities saying, wait a second, this is the coolest thing ever. And then they start endorsing us and, promoting us on various pages and various creative ways of doing third-party fundraising on our behalf.
So what are some of the process challenges that you have had to make all this happen, let's say pre, during, and post-pandemic?
I always equate it to a storm, probably because prior to the pandemic, most of our work was done in response to natural disasters. So we think of ourselves as like that ship that can come in. But as we were going into this storm, and the numbers were increasing, in one day we got 25,000 applications. I mean, it was just, the waves were coming and these beautiful people were coming on board with me. And like I said, I wasn't going to deter from our practice. And though I didn't have the infrastructure. And so every single day I was committed to sending out those grant amounts via ACH to get money into their accounts quickly, because that's key during crisis, is quickly and safely. And PayPal was shutting down, and Chase Bank, I would spend all day, 8 hours a day on hold with Chase Bank, only to be hung up on after 8 hours, after 3 hours, after 4 hours. And this is why so many of these organizations just weren't able to make it. I mean, especially the ones that had the best intentions that were popping up for the first time. You know, I mean, it was just there was just no financial infrastructure that we knew how to lean on. And so every day, my now operations manager and we would just literally spend hours going through, double checking every routing number, every spelling of every name, every account number, and then, you know, pressing that send button, because once it's gone, it's gone. And honestly, that's when I called you guys. That's when I called your part-time controller. And I looked around for a while for a recommendation, and I figured there would be so many people out of work that it wouldn't be hard to find someone. But actually, of course, everybody needs their financial officers during a major crisis. And so it was very highly recommended to me that we look into you guys, and it was a godsend across the board. I didn't just have one person come in and help me with heavy lifting. I had a whole team just take it off my plate, and that was magnificent. It saved us, hands down. It saved us. We could never have done what we have done. We never could have gone through the pandemic. We never could have helped all of these people and been as successful as we are. At the end of the day, we're a financial institution. It is all about getting that money from our pockets, from somebody else's pocket into our pockets, out to somebody else's pocket. So without that ability, we would have crashed and burned also. So really, I mean, thank you, and hats off to everything that you guys have done. Well,
Kathryn, I mean, I have goosebumps. I mean, that is so great to hear. And I just,
it is very much the honest truth. That is no bull. We've had nothing. We had Chase Bank. That's what we had. Yeah. We didn't even have PayPal. We didn't have anything. Right. We had some weird event ticketing something or other that could take donations if somebody really wanted to give them to us. So that's how sparse we were. And so once we got everything into place, then we were able to establish a platform, and Ade from your team has been the one really helping lead this effort. It's called Kindful. It's nothing too sophisticated, but first he got us on QuickBooks, first of all, which talks to PayPal, which is amazing. And now QuickBooks and PayPal are talking to Kindful, and everything's been uploaded, and we just finished our own onboarding to that platform. And so we're about to go live with that system. And so it's incredible. I mean, I can even use Diane's reports. Diane is our other team lead. Yes, she's amazing. And she's a very calming force, which is always nice. She is able to not only walk me through all of our finances and projections, because we have, a lot of times we'll have over $100,000 go out the door in a day. And that's like 5 days a week. And when you're talking about that much money, that's scary. That's it. And I can rely on Diane saying, hey, so we've got plenty of money over here in Chicago, but if we're doing this in, let's say the Gulf Coast Fund, you need to know where we are there. And we're able to get on the phone weekly, and I have those checks and balances, and I have that peace of mind, so that every day when I'm granting these amounts of monies, I know where we stand. And if we don't have quite enough, I know also where to look, and I know how to speak to the donors in a very real way. And that's been such a huge blessing. And she's also able to help me with my financial projections. You know, we're living in the land of unknown. And sorry that I'm just going off about how awesome Diane is, but really, I mean, it's important to say that nobody knows what is going to happen in this fiscal year or annual year, whatever, if that's not the same for you. Nobody knows how to responsibly plan. And Diane and Ade and I got together, and we came up with a very responsible plan. And yes, it seems like tremendous growth, and it is tremendous growth. We go from 1 employee at the beginning of 2020 to now 11 full-time employees and 8 full-time contractors. However, we are still so conservative. And Diane actually is a little nervous about how conservative we are. And she's open with me and she lets me know, you've got some operating money that we need to look at here. But I'm at 6% on my overhead and from my entire budget. So, I mean, to come out of this in such a healthy, well-rounded way and be able to say that to the folks that have supported us, that yes, don't get scared by this growth that you're seeing. Your money really went to exactly where you intended it to go. And that's just sort of one of the million things that they have brought to the table for us.
That's amazing. And I just want to thank you for being so humble and honest about the struggle of financial management of a growing, organization that really just, it's so important for other executive directors and other nonprofit leaders to hear other stories about the struggle. That is real in the financial management world. And then once you get that settled, the comfort and breaths you can take going into the next year, all settled and ready to go, and planning even further than that is really, I know it's just incredibly valuable to you. And I can see the calmness on your face when you talk about it.
I'm a very different person today than I was a year ago.
That was my conversation with Kathryn Lott of the Houston area nonprofit Southern Smoke. To learn more about the amazing work Southern Smoke is doing for hospitality workers in Houston and around the country, visit southernsmoke.org. Up next in our Ask the Controller segment, YPTC's own Geraldine Dressler talks to Southern Smoke's YPTC team members Ade Odenai and Diane Hewlett about the tips and practices they implement to help a rapidly growing nonprofit succeed.
Hello, Ade and Diane. Thank you so much for being here. So let's jump into it. There was a theme in what we heard Kathryn speak about, the keys to Southern Smoke's success. And she said they keep it simple. So capitalizing on that theme, let's start with you, Ade. You've been instrumental at the platform and the transaction level. What's an example of something that you have done or implemented to help Southern Smoke be incredibly timely and nimble with its aid to recipients, but also keep it simple?
Hi, Geraldine. Thank you. Southern Smoke provide financial support to people in the food and beverage industry. And these daily payments are made by ACH to the individual's accounts. So before we started working with Kathryn, her and the team would manually make these individual payments. And this daily operational task would take Kathryn and her team between 3 to 4 hours to complete. So what we did was to customize an Excel template to make all the payments in a single upload file. And all Kathryn has to do now is click on the button and approve the file. So this daily operational task now takes less than 15 minutes instead of 3 to 4 hours. This simple but effective process change has allowed Kathryn to spend less time on operational tasks and more time on the strategic objectives of the organization.
That's great. That's a huge shift. Thanks for that. All right, Diane, you've been instrumental at the financial statement level, and per Kathryn, she called you a calming force to help keep her informed with the knowledge that she needs to make decisions. So what's an example of an analysis or a report that you provide to Kathryn that is informative yet still manages to keep it simple?
Hi, Geraldine. That would definitely be the rolling cash forecast. Kathryn loves that report, and that's instrumental for the organization because their organization is so cash intensive, and their mission is to distribute cash awards to food and beverage workers who need assistance. It's really critical that we know at all times what cash they have available, and that we can project out for approximately a year what they will have available each month, and then see what changes either in donations revenue or in other expenses we expect to have, and how that will affect the cash balance and what they can distribute.
Excellent. That's huge. All right, Ade, what aspect of Southern Smoke's processes or operations strike you as key to their success?
Okay. Kathryn and the team have this amazing ability to form sustainable partnerships with corporations and individuals who provide a recurring donation to the organization, and who also raise significant amount of funds for Southern Smoke's mission through various activities. So what this has done is allowed Southern Smoke to continue to provide substantial funds to individuals around the country during this pandemic crisis. And going forward, these strong partnerships should put Southern Smoke in a really good position to continue to provide financial support to individuals beyond the pandemic.
Excellent. Yeah, partnerships, relationships, it's really the name of the game, right?
Yeah, true.
All right. Diane, what is Southern Smoke doing now that will position them well to meet their mission in the future, and that perhaps other nonprofits can do as well?
I've just been amazed by how flexible Southern Smoke is and how they take on new opportunities. And I think this has been the key to their success this past year and will continue to be the key to their success. They're always looking for new ways to do things. For instance, with their special events, when they couldn't hold events in person, they've looked for a variety of ways to hold the events. And then when they find out that something's not going to work, they're quick to let go of that and move on to something else. And I'm sure this will be the key to their success in the future.
All right. For both of you, what are you most proud of helping Southern Smoke with? And Ade, we can start with you.
Okay, thank you. When we joined Southern Smoke, they did not have their own employee benefits program. So what we did was we worked closely with Kathryn to research, select, and implement a employee benefits package that included matching 401k, medical plan, vision plan, and dental plan. And having its own benefits program has enabled Southern Smoke to take greater control of its plan and to make sure those plans are better suited for its employees. The employee benefit program is just one of the many ways that Kathryn demonstrates her commitment to the welfare of her employees.
That's wonderful, and definitely a model to the restaurant industry at large, right?
Yeah.
All right. Diane, how about you?
I'm really proud of the relationship that we've built with Kathryn and Southern Smoke and the trust that she has in us. She can focus on other areas of the business, and she knows that with the procedures and the reporting that Ade and I have put in place, that we're taking care of the financial area. And then on our weekly calls with her, we can address any areas of concern or questions that she has. She values our opinions and will let us know what decisions or opportunities are coming up, and lets us provide recommendations or let her know if we think other expertise is needed in those decisions. And she's great to work with. She's fun. She values our opinion and lets us know that she really appreciates us. So we love working with her.
That's awesome. Congratulations to you both. It sounds like you've been you had a huge impact on Southern Smoke and helping them to get where they are. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for being on Ask the Controller today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Mission Business Podcast. We look forward to bringing you more stories of innovation and perseverance from nonprofits around the world. I want to thank the team from PWP Video for their guidance and assistance in the development and production of this podcast. They are a great partner for Media with a Mission, and you can find them at pwpvideo.com. Additional information about this episode can be found at missionbusinesspod.com. And follow us on social media at Mission Business Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I want to thank our guests for this episode, Kathryn Lott of Southern Smoke, and YPTC team members Ade Odenai and Diane Hewlett. This podcast was produced by Erica Blair and Geraldine Dressler of Your Part-Time Controller, LLC. Our producers from PWP Video are Dave Winston and Michael Schweisheimer. And the show was directed and edited by Pat Ganley. Again, I'm Jennifer Alleva, and we'll see you here next time on Mission Business, presented by Your Part-Time Controller, LLC.